So I wanted to show how I made this light fitting, a teasel design. This one's in madder, which is a lovely, it's a natural dye, a dye from a plant. And I'm going to make one now that I'm going to dye in mauve. So there's three types of stitching. This is called karamatsu, or Japanese larch, which is a lot of rows of stitching very close together. These are both types of Orinyu shibori, and this is a simple folded fabric, folded once and then stitched with running stitches. And this one is actually folded like a pleat and then stitched through 4 layers of fabrics. Firstly, we take a completely plain piece of cream fabric, and I draw in tailor's chalk, I draw the design that I want onto the fabric. So I sort of show where I want to start the stitching and where I want it to end. It's quite important to take care when creating this teasel shape. I need to take care that I'm making a really nice shape there that expresses what I feel teasels are like. Then we need to fold it in half on that. That's why I've drawn a line down the middle, a little line down the middle there, because I need to sew through both layers of the fabric here. And I'm going to pin it just temporarily while I get this first row of stitching in. So we start with, I always use polyester thread because there's always a fear of cotton thread breaking. And I have to say that I've tried various makes, but the Gutermann German thread is definitely the strongest one I've come across and the least likely to break. I'll take the thread, and I always use it double, and then I tie a little tag in the end, a little cotton or wool thread in the end. And this is so that when I come to pull up all the stitching at the end to resist the dye, the cotton can't pull through the fabric. This first line of the teasel is actually really important to get it right, because it's the outside shape. So I always take a little bit of time getting this right. I have been known to stitch this and then have to undo it. So I'm following the line that I have drawn on the fabric. This first row wants to be quite small stitches because it's creating the outside of the design. So still following the line I've put on the fabric. So nearly at the end of this first outside line. Yeah, I'm jerking the other side. I can see that I'm doing quite evenly. Yeah. Right, so that's the first line. And then we continue now with another line of stitching inside that one, and starting about this much in. They need to be quite close together to create the pattern. And the thing is actually to try and vary the stitching so it's not following exactly the same line. So I'm just doing it a little bit wider here, wider stitches. So that creates, and then maybe we'll do some very small stitches. So we just carry on doing rows and rows gradually till we fill up the shape. Gradually I've been filling in, as you can see, filling in all the stitching. So the whole area is covered with stitching, quite close together. Parallel lines of stitching until the whole thing is filled up. And it's really good to vary the length of the stitches, and then you'll get a more interesting pattern. So that's the teasel all sewn up. And then we just got to do the sort of side fronds of the teasel. So this type of stitching, which is a very simple single line, I'm going to go along that line of the blue that I've drawn on the fabric there. It's called Orinui Shibori, and it's just a simple single fold in the fabric. The sort of one of the basic stitches of Shibori. A very simple thing, but used together it creates some really lovely, you can create some really lovely patterns with it. And I just gradually fold the fabric round to make the curve. Just a couple more stitches. Then to create the main stem of the teasel, it's a slightly different stitch. It's another form of Orinui Shibori, which is using a simple running stitch to create the, but I'm making a little fold along the line, so we're actually stitching through 4 layers of cotton. This one is quite tricky to get nice and even. It's very easy to make this one uneven because you're doing this double fold, and then I stitch through all 4 layers, so it's like a little pleat. And I just need to, as I sew, kind of check that I'm not letting it get, that I'm keeping the size of that little pleat the same. Now I've completed all the sewing and now I have to pull all these ends up to to resist the dye, and this is quite a fiddly little job to do. So I need to pull all these very slightly just to begin to get them to gather. It's beginning to gather up. What you don't want to do is for one of these to break. Yes, you really don't want that to happen. So you have to ease them very gently. So I will start tying. So what happens now is I need to tie each one of these off with the same little tag in the end. And that's one of the reasons why you use a double thread. So now we're nearly at the end of pulling up the teasel, the main teasel shape, the Karamatsu Shibori. I've just got a few more rows to tie off. You can see it's all crunched up, ready to resist the dye. I always tie it twice, or even 3 times sometimes, because I just can't bear the thought of having done all this work and then it coming undone or something. So as we get to the end, it does get a little bit confusing. Terrifying that I'm going to break it. It's really important to get this very last one nice and tight, because that's the outline for the teasel. So that's all pulled up tight, lovely. And then I've just got, these are much easier to do, the side pieces. So this is the single little folded fabric. Just need to make sure I've pulled it right up to the edge. Tying one in the end, so just make sure it's really tight. And again on the other side. It is important to get it evenly, tightly pulled up. And then the stalk, the stem of the teasel, which is the a bit of resistance there on the cotton, so they're pulling it up really tight, making sure there's absolutely no gap. So that again is, the reason for the little tag at the end. It helps you pull up really tight against something, which ensures you make it really tight. So that's that completely sewn, and now it needs to soak in water before being dyed for about at least an hour. Usually I do it overnight. There we go, all tied up, ready to soak.